It was supposed to be a clever segment. That's what the producers had in mind. A sharp, edgy back and forth between Hollywood's most unapologetic talk show host and one of the most respected actors alive. A little political spice, a little culture war banter. Something to clip for social media and rake in millions of views. But what they got was something else. The HBO studio for Real Time with Bill Maher was packed, as usual. Half the audience were longtime Maher fans. The other half just wanted to see what Denzel Washington might say when asked the tough questions. Maher thrived on control. He liked luring guests into his world, a world where sarcasm reigned and every eye roll counted as a punchline. He didn't expect Denzel to come in quiet. He didn't expect Denzel to come in ready. The applause thundered as Maher stepped onto the stage, beaming with that trademark grin that said, "I know what you're thinking, and yes, I'm smarter than you." "Ladies and gentlemen," Maher announced, "my next guest is a man who's played everything from Malcolm X to a rogue assassin to an angel in disguise. He's got an Oscar, a Golden Globe, and a suspicious lack of tweets." Laughter. A few claps. Maher raised an eyebrow as the music played. "Please welcome Mr. Denzel Washington." Denzel stepped out. Not flashy, not rushed. A black suit, no tie, calm walk. He shook Maher's hand like he'd done it 1,000 times. But he didn't sit right away. He turned to the audience and gave a small nod. Then he took his seat. Maher jumped in. "So let's get into it. Denzel, you've been quiet lately. No political rants, no activist speeches, no Instagram live streams. Are you okay?" More laughter. Denzel just smiled. "I'm fine," he said simply. "I don't talk unless there's something worth saying." Maher chuckled. "Right. Very old school of you." Denzel shrugged. "Maybe. Or maybe just not addicted to applause." The first shift. Subtle, but real. Maher waved it off. Okay. So let's do the Hollywood to Washington pipeline thing. Everyone's got a cause. Everyone's got a flag to wave. Where's your flag, Denzel? What hill are you dying on these days? Denzel leaned forward. "I'm not here to die on a hill. I'm here to tell the truth." Maher raised an eyebrow. "And what truth is that?" Denzel paused. "That we've confused being loud with being right. That we've built platforms out of outrage instead of wisdom. And that people like you," he looked Maher straight in the eyes, "have made a career out of clapping back without ever looking in the mirror." The room went still. Maher blinked. "Excuse me." Denzel leaned back, calm as ever. "You talk a lot about free speech. About calling out hypocrisy. You've made millions doing it. But you only punch in one direction." Maher scoffed. "Are you accusing me of bias now?" "I'm accusing you," Denzel said evenly, "of forgetting the difference between being fearless and being careless." The audience murmured. It wasn't a punchline. It was a warning. Maher tried to reclaim the floor. "Look, I'm a comedian, Denzel. That's what I do. I point out the absurdity. I make people laugh. You know, the truth with a little edge." Denzel nodded. "That's the problem. You think the truth needs an edge. You think it needs to be dressed up in sarcasm to be heard. But some truths don't laugh back." Silence. And then applause. Not a wave, but solid. From corners of the audience that didn't usually clap first. Maher smirked, but it looked thinner now. All right, he said. "You came loaded." "I came honest," Denzel said. Maher tried to shift. "Okay, so let me ask you this. You don't post online. You don't jump into movements. But you play these powerful roles, leaders, prophets, revolutionaries. What does that make you? A hypocrite?" Denzel didn't even blink. "It makes me an actor." He paused. "And a man who knows when to speak from a script and when to speak from the soul." The room shifted again. Maher pressed harder, his voice sharpening. "So are you saying those of us who do speak out are just playing a role too?" Denzel finally looked him full in the face. "I'm saying some of you stopped caring whether what you say heals or wounds. You just care if it trends." The moderator looked off stage, clearly rattled. This wasn't going the way they planned. Maher tried again. "So what? We're all clout chasers now. Everyone but you." Denzel leaned in. "No," he said softly. "But some people tell the truth to build. Others just use it to break." A long pause. The audience was silent. No clapping now. Just listening. And then, "Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back." Cue the music. Fade to black. But the air in the studio didn't move. Because what had just happened wasn't a conversation. It was an awakening. The cameras were off, but the war was still on. The moment the commercial music faded and the red lights died, Bill Maher leaned back in his chair, expression tight. The smile he wore during taping was gone, ripped off like a mask that no longer fit. He turned toward Denzel, who sat perfectly still, one hand resting on his thigh, the other on the armrest like he was carved into the seat. Maher's voice dropped to a sharp whisper. "You want to do this here?" Denzel turned his head. "I already did." Producers hovered nervously near the edge of the stage. You could hear them in hurried whispers. "What's the damage? Do we cut the next segment? Is Maher okay? What about the sponsors?" But the real damage wasn't technical. It was psychological. Maher wasn't just losing control of the interview. He was losing control of the room. Backstage, staff scrambled to figure out what to do. The social media team was already uploading part 1. No one had to tell them. They knew it was going viral before it even aired. The quote was already being clipped. "Some truths don't laugh back." Denzel Washington. On Twitter/X, the anticipation was building. Someone had leaked the taping had gone off script. Word was spreading fast. Phones buzzed in the audience. TikToks were being whispered into, even before segment 2 resumed. Inside the studio, the moderator returned to Maher's ear. "We're hot in 30. Maher didn't answer. He rubbed his face, looked down, then back up. Denzel hadn't moved. He wasn't smug. He wasn't shaken. He was just present. The show came back from break. No flashy reintroduction. No band riff. Just Bill Maher, trying to reclaim the stage. "All right," Maher said, forcing a grin. "We're back with Denzel Washington, America's favorite non-tweeter." A few chuckles from the crowd, but it felt forced. Even those who usually laughed at anything he said didn't. Denzel nodded politely. "Good to be back." Maher pushed forward. "So let's keep going. You clearly have opinions. Let's hear them." "Gladly," Denzel said, folding his hands. "But we don't need another gotcha game." Maher smirked. "No games here." "Really?" Denzel asked. "Then why do your questions always end with a punchline?" That hit. Even the cameraman flinched. Maher scoffed, crossing his legs. "I joke because this world's a mess, Denzel. Maybe if you spent more time in the real world and less time in movie trailers, you'd get that." That was the shot. The kind of line that usually won the room. But this time, it didn't. The audience didn't laugh. Some winced. A couple groaned. And one person, loud enough to be heard, muttered, "That wasn't it." Denzel tilted his head, like a boxer waiting for a wild swing before countering. "You think being outside the trailer teaches you more about suffering?" he asked. "Brother, I grew up in the Bronx. You grew up on HBO." Maher went red. "Don't come at me like that." "I'm not coming at you," Denzel said, voice calm. "I'm asking why you think cynicism is intelligence." Maher snapped. "It's not cynicism, it's realism." "No," Denzel replied. "It's a shield. A defense mechanism. You use humor like a bulletproof vest, then act surprised when someone doesn't flinch." The audience erupted. Not wild applause. Just a deep, collective murmur of damn. Maher forced a laugh. "You're getting applause now. You happy?" Denzel leaned in. "I don't speak for applause. I speak for impact. You talk every week and people laugh. I speak once and they feel." A beat of silence. That line hung in the air like smoke. Maher was cornered, but he tried one more swing. "You're sounding pretty self-righteous, Denzel." "I'm sounding convicted," Denzel replied. "There's a difference. One's about ego. The other's about conscience." More murmurs. Someone clapped. Then more. The audience was shifting. The control room noticed. Maher's producer looked panicked. One assistant whispered, "Should we cut it early?" "No," said the director. "Let it burn." Back on stage, Maher tried to pivot. "Fine. Let's talk policy. You're a patriot, right? What do you think about all this DI stuff in Hollywood, in business, in schools?" Denzel didn't miss a beat. "I think diversity without discipline is chaos. And inclusion without integrity is manipulation." Maher raised an eyebrow. "So you're against it?" "I'm against using justice as a brand," Denzel said. "I'm against pretending equity is achieved by quotas instead of character." That landed like thunder. He looked around. Black people didn't march for photo ops. They marched for dignity. Now we've got corporations acting woke in press releases and ruthless in practice. And you, he turned back to Maher. You mock it all, like it's one big joke. But for some of us, it's not theory. It's life. Maher looked stunned. And for once, he had nothing to say. The audience clapped. This time, it was thunderous. People on both sides of the ideological aisle were on their feet. Not because Denzel pandered, but because he spoke like a man who had nothing to prove and everything to remind them of. The truth didn't need volume. It had weight. Maher exhaled hard. Well, that was intense. It was overdue, Denzel said. Maher tried to joke. Remind me never to pick a fight with a man who's played Malcolm X and a hitman. Denzel just smiled. Next time, he said, play the role of a good listener. Fade to black. The segment ended. But the conversation? That was just getting started. The broadcast was over, but the studio didn't empty. The lights dimmed, the credits rolled, but the audience just sat there. People who had laughed at every one of Bill Maher's jabs for years now whispered to each other, unsure whether to clap or reflect. In the far corner, one woman said softly, I've never seen Maher get quiet like that. She wasn't wrong. It wasn't just a silence of defeat. It was the silence of a man who had underestimated the wrong guest. Backstage, the tension was thick enough to choke on. Maher's team avoided eye contact. Producers whispered into headsets. The control room buzzed with conflicting instructions. Cut clips fast. Don't tag Denzel directly. Frame it as a spirited debate. But no one believed it was a debate. Not really. It was a dismantling. A masterclass in restraint and reality. Maher stormed into his dressing room, slamming the door. No post-show banter. No Twitter tease. Just silence. Denzel? He didn't head to the green room. He didn't pose for selfies. He didn't check social media. He walked into the hallway, shook the hands of two stagehands, and said only, thanks for keeping the lights steady. When his driver arrived, he got into the back seat, closed the door, and leaned back. That was it. No entourage. No commentary. Just the presence of a man who had said what needed to be said and left nothing else on the table. But the world outside didn't stay quiet. By the time Denzel was halfway to his hotel, the internet was on fire. Clips of the exchange dominated every feed. You use humor like a bulletproof vest and act surprised when someone doesn't flinch. At Truth Reels, 2.1 M views in 45 minutes. Some truths don't laugh back. At Civic Savage, 900K likes. Denzel Washington just made Bill Maher look like an intern on his own show. At Broke Political, 3.4 M views. Late night hosts rewrote monologues. Cable panels reshuffled guests. Fox News tried spinning it into a Hollywood elitist moment. But even they couldn't deny what had just happened. Maher had finally been challenged by someone who didn't need applause to land the punch. Hours later, Maher released a single tweet. Good chat tonight. Denzel's intense, huh? Faced with tears of joy, watched the full thing now. The tone was off. People felt it. It didn't match the energy. It didn't address the discomfort. It didn't own anything. Replies roasted him. Denzel dragged you without raising his voice. 72K likes. That wasn't a chat. That was a truth session. 41K retweets. You got humbled. Say thank you and sit down. 53K likes. Maher didn't respond again. Denzel, on the other hand, didn't post a thing. No statement. No commentary. No follow-up interview. The only words came from a brief phone interview with a journalist from The Atlantic. I didn't go there to fight. I went there to hold a mirror. If people didn't like what they saw, maybe it's time to look closer. That quote made the cover the next day. The Mirror. How Denzel Washington redefined what it means to speak up in silence. Within 24 hours, the network saw the analytics. The episode had broken real-time streaming record by a wide margin. Clips from Denzel's segment were outperforming every other guest in the show's history. Retention was 92%, meaning people watched every second, start to finish. That wasn't entertainment. That was impact. And in quiet spaces across the country, the conversation had changed. In barbershops, cafes, late-night dorm rooms, people weren't asking, did you see Maher's joke? They were asking, did you hear what Denzel said? 1 week later, at a private university in Georgia, a black student asked his professor, "Why is it that Denzel never has to raise his voice to own the room?" The professor smiled. "Because when your soul is louder than their ego, you never have to shout." Maher returned the next week with a new episode. He didn't mention Denzel. Not once. But his tone had changed. He seemed careful, cautious, like a man who'd been reminded what accountability tastes like. It's bitter, but honest. Denzel Washington continued his work, filming, producing, mentoring young actors. No press tour, no back and forth. Just the quiet confidence of a man who didn't need to clap back, because he never clapped in the first place. And for everyone who watched it unfold live, they weren't watching a celebrity moment. They were watching a cultural reset. A reminder that in an age of noise, the truth still hits hardest when it walks in calm and leaves with the room.